Record. So if you're watching the chat, I was kind of just observing and annotating CPI and what it was possibly reaching forward doing today based off of this week and kind of the things we're looking at. We've gone ahead and cleared the buy side here. And I was saying that there is some sell side down here that is interesting. We are making a lot of headway higher. That is, to me, a little bit concerning. If I was to look for lower prices, it's a little bit of a stretch. So I'm not going to lean too heavily on it. We'll see what today provides. So the daily time frame here, you take away a few of these things, I know it's a lot, but we have this imbalance here that we closed above yesterday. So we closed above it, dropped down into it, and we have a volume imbalance there that we utilized. It's now propelling price higher. It's just a bit of a sloppy, like if I was to look for lower prices, it's a bit sloppy in terms of like at least finding something in it. There is the up close candle here that we are reaching into, but it's even a stretch. Like the whole week I've pointed out, it's not the cleanest area in the world, but it's the only thing that I can find that price can reach up into. The hourly time frame, we're getting way too close to Friday's high to the point where I believe that it's probably going to get taken. And if that gets taken, then I don't really know where price wants to go. Because to me, that would probably invalidate the entire idea of even looking for lower prices. To be completely honest with you, I think that would invalidate it. If we got above here, closed above it, then my eye would go to that high. Now, that changes a whole lot of things. That changes completely how I'm looking at this. Does that mean that we're returning possibly back to this imbalance up here? You take this all away. Does that mean we're returning into here, right? Does that mean we're possibly retracing back into this inefficiency as a reclaimed? Even though we've utilized it once before, it could want to travel back into that. It's not preferred. It's not what I'd want to see, but that is an option. Akbar, yeah, I mean, with SMT and looking at that, there's just nothing that price would be reacting off of. Like if there's going to be an SMT, I would want to see, well, why would it want to, just because there's SMT at the highs, that is a good SMT, but there's nothing that price is reacting off of. There's nothing that price is, if it's going to reach for this high here, then where would we be reacting off of? There's nothing else in this area. So that's the problem I would have looking at price this morning. I mean, we do have this 15-minute imbalance that we're still not closing above, but it's a bit of a stretch so far. I'm not going to completely lean on this high right away, but if I had to, it looks as if this high wants to be ran. And if that is true, then we would probably reach into this imbalance. Preferably, I want lower prices. I have a lot better downside objectives. I have a lot better things that I could be looking for in terms of a bias and a trade overall is lower prices. Because if we do reach lower, then we have relative equal lows that are resting here before CPI open. We have relative equal lows which are resting down here. We also have the new week opening gap, which is still a liquidity void from this week, if you remember. So there's a lot of things that I could reach for. It's just getting really, really deep in a premium to the point where this highs could be attacked. If that high's attacked, then I have to reach for this imbalance and this volume imbalance up here, which are not great objectives. It's, the entire narrative kind of changes for me, at least short term. So we'll see. We're still not closing above this. Just keep watch of that, annotate that inefficiency. It would have to, this would be that is your last line of defense. That is your last line in the sand. If price wants to reach off lower, it would have to do it here. So, and I'm not saying to short it. I'm just stating that if it's going to want to reach for lower prices, it's going to want to have to do it here. Otherwise, we seek Friday's high. So that's my standpoint on today and right now where we're at. We'll see how we open and how everything unplays. as we go further throughout the day. So I'm going to go into a 1 minute, maybe observe price, what it's trying to do in here. So CPI is much like NFP or anything like that, where you have the initial delivery of whatever the news driver event is, and then the open does the opposite typically. ES did clear its buy side, but it's not as, it didn't create an SMT, but ES cleared its highs. I mean, I'm not going to jump right away at just because prices moved lower, but I am watching it. If you see me interact with price early, I mean, I'm not stating I'm going to, but it's because we're already done the work that would be needed. If I see the opportunity that presents itself, then I would be willing to engage. That is a breaker right here that we just dropped into. Is that actually a real thing? Well, I'm saying, like, does it move? It's probably just the camera. ES is selling off pretty hard. It's interesting. I want to do one micro here. Maybe good decision or a bad one. I mean, it's one micro. I want to see, since I'm watching a 15-second chart, the way it's broke underneath this 15-second sell side and bounce or buy side. And when I do these, please do not be doing your regular contract size when I do these things. I know some people that do that. The reason I'm willing to engage with price earlier is because we've already cleared the buy side. We've already set the premium, as I mentioned, that if that was this imbalance, if that was to hold, that should be the last point of interest. They should not be willing to go above the high that we set prior to the open. It should be willing to seek these lower prices. So we'll see how it turns out. If I'm willing to pyramid in, I'm going to do so. It's different protocol than me waiting for the open, seeing how everything moves. Is if things are already primed, then I don't have to wait for it. I'm going to do 2 in there and see how that works. I'll keep it where it's at in case it wants to trade at that inefficiency, but I'm looking at the 15-second. So I'd rather see this stay open. I can trade into it, but I'd rather see this stay open. Yeah, that would be the first FEG. Go back to a 1 minute here. So I'd want to see, I mean, it may reach into this inefficiency, which is fine. So we've delivered into it. I need to see reaction. I mean, if I get stopped, then I would have to sit aside because, like I mentioned, this would be the last point of interest for me to look for lower prices. It's a nice reaction, but I want to see it really, really want to bleed off and tear off lower. I don't want to see a whole bunch of time, and we're still somewhat inside of this breaker. I want to see it get beneath that. It's a nice reaction in the 15-second. We'll see what price does today, because if it really gets animated, I have a lot of targets I can reach for. But I need to see a lot of confirmation of that. Like, I don't want to say these relative equal lows are a stretch, because they definitely can be reached into. It would just take a minute. I don't want to get overzealous. Yes, it would be Mantis. I could very well be stopped, so it's just be calm. I'm not sure how to respond to that comment, but thank you. Version here, up close candle is the bearish order block. I don't like that reaction. They can reclaim it, keep everything where it's at. Where I see that 5 minute not even touched. ES is a lot lower, which could be good. Knowing how this always plays out is it's not going to give easy runs right off the jump. So I'm not surprised to see a reclaim there. If it returns back into that first inefficiency, yeah, it's not good. I need to see it kind of start wanting to move lower from here. I don't love the 15-minute closure. Question: CPI data lows considered 830 candle or 831. I would use 831. I'm gonna be watching ES because ES may make a lower low here, and that may be problematic. That creates some type of SMT. We'll see the follow through on it. Still hasn't made it. I'm gonna reduce my stop. There's no reason to even keep it where it's at. Nice reaction. I want to see the follow through. Drop down into this inversion. It's quite large, but it's there. CE of that wick. And bounce there. I'd rather stay open. ES made a lower low. Not the greatest. Up close candles, bearish shorter black. I gotta see the follow through on this. It's gotta keep wanting to press off lower. The reason I'm stating like this, I'm talking like this, is because again, things are primed to move, in my opinion. So if I see that, I'm very, very engaged with price. That's the reason why I'm talking like this. I'm very serious, and I'm paying attention to every little detail, and I'm walking it through my mind, obviously verbally. What I'm saying, these are things that I would be saying to myself. Like whenever I'm in a trade, you can hear what I'm saying is very dialed into what price is doing. If I don't see anything, then I'm not even talking about price. Correct. You need to be stating validation, invalidation points, continuously walking through, countering arguments that are for it, against it. Like the fact that ES made a lower low, it's not completely against it because I'm looking at the narrative, which is higher time frames. I'm looking at where price should be primed to go towards, but that is a counter argument. So I'm looking at that. I'm seeing, is there evidence that it wants to keep going towards what I'm looking for? If it doesn't, it starts showing me opposing ideas, and I have to cut the trade, and I gotta move along with the day. Uh, at this point, I gotta throw stops to break even. Well, I was comfortable letting it do what it was doing in here, but I gotta see if either follow through, or it's gonna stop me at break even. Like I said, as soon as we start breaking off lower, even getting underneath the sell side, I'll probably end up taking a partial or two. But I have very long targets today, very, very long. Not because I'm greedy, not because I'm overzealous, because I understand what we're trying to reach for. These lows are very, very clean. With CPI, the volatility that is induced in the market can really push price to that level if it wants it. So it's like probably 300 handles or so from where I'm at, where I entered. Just about. We're inside of the macro as well. I just noticed that. I said if I get stopped at break even, it's fine. It's whatever. I'm happy with the execution because this, like I said, is the last points of interest. It's not. I actually don't mind it right now. I, I think we'll trade off lower. The way price is looking. Remember, price is never just a straight shot. One side of the upside, downside. It's usually takes time to do things. Just gotta be patient with it. That up close candle on the 5 minutes here, bear shorter block, so should be willing to work off of that. That there. But if I was a savage, I would continuously keep pyramiding into it. But I'm comfortable with where my entries at and the targets for the day and contracts on. If it makes it underneath basically this inversion, I'm pretty sold on the sell side. Just thinking about it, I'll probably take two off here to just eliminate any anxiety or anything like that. I mean, the position's already up 60, 70 handles. We do yesterday's trade as well. I mean, it's 130, 140 handles on the week already. can retrade to it. Needs to do it very soon here. It needs to slide off lower. ES is still sliding lower. Sky, yeah. 5-minute open high, low close. You have to think too, like right off the open, it immediately dumped lower. So they're not going to make, even if it is supposed to go lower. People are watching that open, and whatever the open does, I hate saying retail or whoever trades those type of concepts. As soon as they see one way or the other, they immediately jump on that train. So they're going to make that as hard as possible, and then make them question it, and then just dump the thing. I don't see any opposing argument to go higher. Nothing. Like, even if I was stopped at break even today, I would be done because there's no opposing argument for me. Yeah, well, I mean, that's just my thought process around it. But if price just starts selling off, I mean, they're going to chase that thing. So make it as hard as possible, then make them question it, then run for what it wants. I'm watching ES closely. Like I'm really paying attention to what that thing's doing, and it's continuously selling off. So it's what gives me confidence in NQ. New hourly opens in like 4 seconds. ES selling off hard. I'm content with that. Reaching the C of that wick there, and I'll just leave one on to see how far. I mean, that's up like 100 handles. ES is way, way lower. And I'm looking at the open of the hourly candle. It's a weird hourly open, high, low, close type of thing. Yeah, I've been on fire lately. Not to not to gloat my own horn here, but that's a weird reaction. Not obsessed with it, but we'll see. Yeah, that's the reason why I took my partial is to see if that's the CPI data wick. That's the reason why I took my partial there. And I'm also looking at the hourly charts, not on the screen, but I'm looking at the way that opened was a bit odd. So we now have relative equal lows. We'll see if we want to work into that. I mean, I'll see how long this thing goes on for. If it keeps propelling, keeps doing what it wants to do, I mean, I'm going to hold out for this target down here. I'll just be trailing my stop and see how that goes. Well, that would be your rejection block. So yes. See how hard they're making this? Like if let's say it does sell off and does achieve the targets, look how hard it is to, you know, be a part of this move. They're making it extremely difficult. I mean, I'll give it that FEG once more. Yes, it's still trading lower. ES is still trading lower. Every time NQ tries to make a little run higher, I'm paying attention to the way ES just keeps running lower. Oh, it's pulling it. ES is just a lot weaker. Whatever happens, happens in here, but I believe we should still see lower prices. I'm just gonna relax though. It's funny when you observe and annotate your body movement. Like anytime I'm super locked into a trade, I'm like 5 inches from my monitor. Wait, Timmy's on here? What are you doing on here? I see you. It should not trade above this high at 10:04. We've already reclaimed this basically 4 times now. Getting into a fifth time is way too much. Eddie, what's up, brother? Yeah, I gotcha. I mean, life happens. It's good though. Trading small, doing the right thing. ES still selling off heavy. I wish you could take off half of one micro. Take it off of those lows right there. my stop and profit goes to that high. There's just no reason to even return to that. And I think that's a $300 day no matter what across all my accounts. So let's see if we can make this like a 1,500, maybe $2,000 day. Probably be it for me this week. Like, we hit a great trade yesterday, and then this works out. I mean, it already is a banger of a trade, but that's all I would need out of the week. I don't need to keep pushing. Like, why would I give back anything I've just earned? Last week was great. If you pass the 300 thing on all your accounts, they increase your equity on that. So they just move you into a live account, like static. It's no longer trailing drawdown, and I don't have any restrictions on my payout. I can get daily payouts. So the issue with these trailing drawdowns is you can't, like, if you look at a static account, you just put like, let's say 10, 15,000 into account. As you move your equity line from your starting point, you can increase your contracts. You can move up your contracts because you're building more equity. But in these funded accounts with a trailing drawdown, you're never building your equity. Hypothetically, I mean, you are building equity, but you're never actually building it until you move past your trailing drawdown, wherever that stops at. If it's 3,000, 4,500, 5,000, once you reach that in a profit, then you can start adding contracts, like moving. But that's the pro to static is, or if you have your own live account, as soon as you start making profit, you can start adding contracts and you start making more money. You start increase, but you can't do that in these funded accounts. So that's why I'm really aiming towards the static. I mean, the profit's cool, however much I make out of them. But I really don't even care about it. I just care about the static account. Like that's, a $15,000 static account that I can really build and then do a bunch of other, do 5 top steps. That's the next thing I'll end up probably doing. I'm about to achieve the sell side in here. I mean, I have such a long target today, man. Boom, bitch. Sorry. Patrick Wheeling could never. I'm gonna ask that dude to get in a trading challenge with me. I'd smoke that dude in half. I watched that video, Mantis. I woke up at like 4 in the morning and I saw you commented that. I watched this video. I'm like, that dude's an out there character. So yeah, I was up $700,000 when I gave it back. I'm like, we're not up 700 grand, dude. I don't know what you're smoking. It doesn't. So I mean, if you want to take your partials, be done. That's that's more than content. I don't even know. That's probably 200 handles or so. 150. I'm a little overzealous today. Still. but these lows are really what I'm aiming at down here. Remember the new week opening gap? Like if I had more contracts on, let's say I had two, I'd hold off one for here, then I'd hold off one for the new week opening gap. But I would be content with this. So, I don't need to sit here and do all that. It's probably mentally exhausting to do so. $80 handles or so to that. Now, let me do this real quick. Musa, I would definitely think that was one of the major game changes I've made in the past few weeks here. That's really, really helped me. It may not be some people's cup of tea, but I don't know how that's helped me. I don't know if it's coincidence with the setups and things given, but I really have been enjoying it. Starting with one micro on something that I have an idea about. As soon as I start seeing evidence for it, I add into it. It's just something, because I struggled a lot with, putting on large positions at certain areas that, I had conviction about, but, things like that. Not to say that anything I was doing before was wrong or I was unprofitable with it, but it was just, there's certain areas that I wanted to make improvements on. And that's, I tried that out and so far it's been great. Tell, what do you say? You buy me some food, huh? Lining those pockets up. It is important though, when you are in good runs and things that are going in your favor for, a couple weeks or a month or whatever it may be, to kind of take a break, to step back and kind of realign yourself. Sometimes you can get way over yourself and become egotistical, become overconfident, overlook certain things, and you misstep. You make stupid mistakes that you wouldn't have because ego and pride and those things get in the way. It's not just a day. You need to take a week, couple weeks off. Um, Overconfidence is a killer, man. That thing is, I've seen it many times within myself. Where you're doing really well and you just don't, you think you're indestructible. And you get a plate full of humility and ends up the same every time. It's very important to notice that. It's very important the opposite way as well. When you feel yourself just underconfident, you're not performing well, all you're going to end up doing is making more mistakes, because all you want to do is just trade your way out of it. That's all you want to do. And when you're overconfident, you want to keep trading it because it feels good. It's like, so to step back and recognize that is very important. I'm not saying it's easy. Yeah, I'd say August was it typically is a harder month. So it's, even if you did perform the best, I think no matter what, that is not typically the best month. I'd rather see these stay open. I'd rather let's just trade off lower. Well, that's just me. Tell them to suck it up. We all went through it. Boo hoo. Cry me a river. So I tell his son. Guess what? You could end up doing this, my friend. We're not even. We're 23 minutes in a silver bullet. Most importantly, though, I know it feels good and all that, but what was the logic and the reasoning behind this trade? I know I've talked about it and obviously took the trade, but um, it's important to know these things. Yeah, and of course I'll cover it, but the important part is you know how to do it yourself. I don't know how long I'll always be doing these things, and it's what ICT's always said. I'm talking specifically to the people that I know in real life. You know who you are that want to do this. It's important that you know how to do it yourselves because I'm always going to be giving signals or doing things like that. So it's important that we all understand what we're doing here. We've stood on this bearish bias all week. If you kept up with the daily logs, you kept up with the live streams. We've stood on that, and we stood on the idea that this inversion is basically the last point of interest. Again, when we work from a higher time frame down, this is the last point of interest. So we drew up into that today, and utilizing before the open or before the open, really it's CPI. If you looked at the chat, I was stating how there's some relative equal highs that were resting above us. I talked about this bearish order block all week, how this, even though it's not the cleanest in the world, that if you're looking for lower prices, and looking at that dealing range, high to low, working from a higher time frame down, it's turning into a premium, taking out internal buy side liquidity, which is there. So that's your premium PDA rate that price is working off of. Inside of that, you can see the relative equal highs CPI release. Now stating in live chat how I want to see that taken before the open really. Now, right where that high is where that 4-hour bearish order block is, right where the daily time frame inversion is, right? That's inside of a premium. I also looked at a 15-minute time frame, just like your bellwether, which ICT says is your guide. That premium imbalance is right there. Did it ever close above it? No. And you're taking out the buy side liquidity there with relative equal lows that were resting in here that we targeted, and these lows down here, which are all draws on liquidity that's paired with the narrative, which is higher time frame. And then we're targeting possibly the new week opening gap because that's still open, right? If it's really, really bearish all throughout the rest of the week, then we would probably want to end up in here. Doesn't mean I have to go for it today, but that's at least a guide for us. Then you look at the lower time frames and you say, okay, well, the difference between me waiting, usually I wait for the open and I wait, maybe into the silver bullet most of the times. The difference between today and other days is, well, the fact that we have CPI, we know that induces volatility, economic calendar. Two, if we're already at all of those points I just discussed, what is that telling us? Well, that's telling us that this thing's, going into the open, it shouldn't want to trade off any higher. The manipulation's already undergone. It's already done its work. It's already taken the buy side. So we should want to see evidence that it wants to slide off lower. So once I start seeing that, and that's where you saw me on a 15-second time frame where I entered like basically in this down close candle here. We're reacting off of that 15-minute time frame, and we're starting to slide off lower. So once I start seeing that, it's like, okay, cool. That's the evidence I want to see. And even allowing, that's the first, first inefficiency that forms, which is another confluence, trades up into that, and you want to see it keep sliding off lower. And we work the whole thing down. It's not just because there's a first inefficiency here. If you want to keep it super simple and not, overcomplicate it, which I don't think that's complicated, what I just stated. But I mean, in reality, that's just a 2022 model. That's, if you want to keep it simple, you're taking buy side, you're displacing lower, shift to market structure, see inefficiency, which is the first one, and you short it. Now, of course, without any other logic or reasoning behind that, that type of model and that type of logic will probably fail you a lot. So that makes sense. And, as far as the reasoning behind the trade, it wasn't just random. Were you still as confident after close above the, yeah. And the reason for that is because, again, we talk about with CPIs, the day before, something like that, price can overlap things. And just because you close above the sell side imbalance there, that doesn't disregard, the entirety of what we've done here. Even look at the weekly time frame, which is the parent. The parent is the weekly, right? The weekly has left this imbalance open, reacted off this inversion. We dropped lower, closed beneath the buy side imbalance last week. And we're looking at this week as the power of 3 of open, high, setting the high inside of what? The inversion. So this inversion here is what I've been eyeing even since the weekly forecast. Stated this very clearly in the game plan. Look at power of 3, open, high, low, close. Well, if I'm expecting lower prices, then I should expect high being set first inside of a bearish PD array, which is the inversion on the weekly. And the daily, just because we closed above it by a little bit, it didn't disregard any market structure. It didn't do anything like that. We also kind of traded up into this little volume imbalance there too. So it's a lot of those steps, that you have to keep in mind. And hopefully that may not answer your question entirely, but hopefully it gives clarity to it. Same thing in, high resistance liquidity runs at times is, you'll close above a little 1 minute imbalance that doesn't completely disregard the idea. You have to look for the last point of interest, really. You can see the volume balance there, the inversion we traded into. For standard deviations and projections and things like that, you can pull this inverse dealing range. Tal, does that make sense? Harris, does that make sense? Did you understand that? That's who I generally am talking to. Not that I'm not talking to any of you, but of course, I'm talking to all of you, but I mean, those are real life friends, so. At this point, my stop goes all the way to this high. So it's about 143 handles in profit. Because I would want to see that one stay open since we reacted off of this one. I'd want to see that stay open. And I also don't want to sit through anymore. I'm kind of, over it. Man, I can't wait to be doing this on millions of dollars. If I made like $1 million today, I'd probably go outside and punch somebody out of excitement. Hey, thank God, man. Thank God for ICT. I don't want to get all emotional and shit, but it's just cool as fuck, man. I would never know these concepts if it wasn't for that dude. And I don't give a shit what anybody else says on the internet because obviously we see this shit play out every single damn day, man. Like it's if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to any of you or trading any of these concepts. I'd still be trading retail shit. Not to hate on him, but I mean, you can't get any better than this. It's crazy. Yeah, Harris. I mean, even Harris is, trade retail concepts per se just, a year ago, and I told him about this, and now, it's like you can't deny this shit, and I don't know how anybody else does in the community. It's crazy, man. Just putting your head in the sand. Like these people that, Patrick and all these, I don't mean to bring attention to them, but these type of runs, they could never dream of it. And it's not to be egotistical or shit on them, but to be 200 handles in profit, like they could never do that. It's just not in their strategy to do it. And I'm not saying one's right or wrong, but it's like that's insane. Yeah, and he is, man. It's just, he even did like some, like a mockery of him. He called out Price the way, mocking ICD, and it actually worked. I was like, well, you're just blind to these concepts, man. I don't know what you're on about. What's left for PPI? Absolutely nothing. I'm gonna have a nice cold Jack and Coke in my hand. I'm gonna sit my ass happily the rest of the week and do nothing. I did what was needed. That's, Rainbow Six. Yeah, new operator came out. Now wait till this happens next year on YouTube Live. Woohoo. With a webcam, yeah. Akbar, would you mean like if you're shorting here? That's where mine's at as far as trailing. Like it's right above that second imbalance. I would prefer that one to stay open. I would prefer this to stay open right there. This one right we're inside of, I'd want to see that respected in a sell off. After that, you just keep trailing it. I mean, you have to look at structure and say, well, the fact that we've utilized this imbalance, we trade lower. You shouldn't want to trade back above that high. If it does, then it probably wants a deeper retracement. I'm not willing to sit through it. That goes beyond these lows. You just have to keep trailing it, keep doing Good job. There was a name in here that I saw earlier that I've not seen. Josh sent. I haven't seen that name in a minute, and he was in here. Apparently, I haven't seen the name in here. Yeah, almost definitely. I haven't seen him in a while. I hope he's all right. Good for Tanya. I mean, we're all winning here, dude. We're all winning. At this point, as long as there's enough food to eat for everybody, which there is, I don't give a shit, man. So happy I recorded this. Can't see the new week opening gap or new day opening gap in 1 minute chart. Um, Are you saying which, like, the current Newwick opening gap, you can't see it? Okay, yeah, I will. Huh. Maybe try deleting it and putting it back on. Sometimes it bugs out. Let me see. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, it's right there too. Maybe, I don't know. Or sometimes you close trading, you reload it, it'll do it. I pulled out. I'm good with that. Boom, baby. Boom.